Good morning and welcome to
Are
Mindset
we?
Monday. Are we not live streaming?
Just Lord,
We
get
are.
that again.
Having a case of the Monday mornings.
No,
It's a good thing it's Monday morning.
It is now streaming live.
well, we're a couple of minutes early.
We are 1 minute. We are never early. We're never early. It's not because of Eve Doucette either.
Well,
All right, so let's get started. Welcome to Mindset Monday. I'm Shelley Butler, and as you can see, it's a little bit different today, and we've got a panel here. So we've got Estelle, and we've got Felicia and Owen and Angela here. We're all Dovaconians, and we're all going to talk a little bit about our latest product. So I'm Shelley Butler, and I have been with Dovaco for 24 years. Felicia?
I'm Felicia Flewelling, and I have been with Dovaco for 15 years.
And I'm Owen Vibert. I've been here at Dovaco for 17 years.
Estelle?
Oh, okay. I'm Estelle. I've been here with Devico 23 years.
And I'm Angela Campbell. I've been with Dovico for 3 years.
3 years. Oh, and Estelle, you know what? You've been here longer because this
Is it
is my
24?
24th year.
You're right. Yes, I've been
It's
here
it's going to
23.
be it's going to be your 25th year.
25th?
Isn't it? Didn't you arrive in Oh no, you're
No, in 2000. So it's 20.
Oh yeah, and I'm 2001,
21.
so 23 years. Yeah. Mm. So we've got some longevity here. Longevity. Angela is our baby, and we expect Angela to be here for 25 years as well. So exciting. This panel is I like it just warmed my heart, you guys, when I put that out there that Eve wasn't going to be here, and you guys all kind of came forward and said, let's do this. I absolutely love that because, it does take some bravery to be in front of a camera. So we have Owen and Felicia in our podcast room. Estelle's home, Angela's home. I am at the cottage. So at Dovaco, we have remote workers. We work hybrid, but all of us mostly work from home. We have found our way. We have found an ability to still socially connect with each other remotely and through things like Zoom and Teams, but it has been a work in progress. We built a product, and the product is called ShowUp. You can find us at showup.io. And what that product does is it allows for deep conversations, even deeper because it's anonymous. So when we go on to our Wednesday team meeting, we find our ability to say everything we need to say, get those things off of our back, off of our shoulders, out of our brains, because carrying those thoughts around with us, especially if it's a little bit negative or some uncertainties, we can create our own demise. So we found through this tool, we can share work things, we can share personal things, and there's no recourse whatsoever because nobody has any idea who's sharing those things. But each one of us at Dovaco is able to lend a hand in holding that person in the palm of the hand if we need to, or just creating some space to be open to the possibility of some changes that we need to make or some celebrations that we haven't done. Bottom line, it is an anonymous tool that allows for deeper conversations. So I am going to be quiet now, and I would love for you each to share how ShowUp in a Wednesday meeting was able to help you overcome a thought, overcome a reaction, overcome maybe an attachment to something. So those are part of our pillars and what we constantly talk about here at Dovaco, because we know with these tools that will help us grow and grow as individuals, grow as teammates. So I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to put myself on mute because you know me, I can talk a lot and I don't want to interrupt anybody. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you, and just at your own leisure, how you feel inside, go for it. Share with us how ShowUp has helped you open up?
Any takers?
Well, since you've opened it up,
Oh, so, okay.
why don't you go for it, Owen?
So for me, I can speak, I think, on both aspects of this. I can speak at it as a participant in these conversations, but I can also speak to leading some of these conversations, and the discoveries that I've had as a result of being in and participating anonymously versus leading some of these conversations. Um, the big thing here for me is the level of courage that I see on display in these meetings, whether people participate vocally or anonymously. Introducing some of these thoughts that we have, and sometimes, Shelley, you alluded to this. Just there's a negative bias sometimes, or we feel like there's a negative bias. So it's very easy to opt out because we don't want to carry that with us. And if we opt out of the conversation and do not have a way to put forth what we see, our perspective, our insight that we can add to the conversation, if we quickly opt out because of that negative stereotype that might be associated to the comment, well, then that thought never enters the discourse. It doesn't enter the conversation. And because it doesn't enter the conversation, nothing happens. So the big thing for me, whether leading a conversation or being a participant in one of those conversations, it's just the vulnerability that shows up and the courage that's displayed in sharing allows for the conversation to have new meaning, to take a new course. And it changes all of us. And I've seen that on display here over the last several years at Dovico. And it's amazing, right? Like we're a business. We want to be profitable. We want to grow. We want all of these, typical financial metrics at place or in place. We all want that. But that's a given in business. The other aspect is the people side. And this is where I get excited. And I think this is where we're onto something here. And I get to see it every Wednesday morning in our meetings. So courage and vulnerability is what I see in play. And it excites me. Enjoy seeing it in all my teammates.
Yeah. Well, since I'm here and we're unmuted, I'll go next if that's okay. I don't really have too much else to add. I agree with everything that you just said, Owen. I know for me as being on both ends as well, a participant and sometimes a host, I find people are very kind when you're the host. I'm like, I don't know. The last couple of years, I'm still like figuring out who I am after giving birth, after becoming a mother. It was really like, I don't know. It was really weird. Anyways, but it's so to be like, oh, you did such a good job. I'm like, oh, thank God, because I was like, I feel like I just totally bombed that. So, so whether you made that spicy comment, or whatever, people are there. They're there for it. Like the good, the bad, the ugly. I kind of feel like ShowUp is sort of like, this came to my mind when Shelley was speaking, like a dig site. So ShowUp is like the planning of the dig site. And then the rest of it is the equipment to dig deep and find the juicy gems, to find the old, archaeological findings. Ooh, that was a big word for Monday morning. That's all I have.
That's amazing. And I will say this, two things come to mind whenever you shared that. So there's this book called Everyday Ubuntu, and it's anyway, I'll spare the details on the book. But the big thing here, there's this proverb that's in there. So you are, therefore I am. So we share these things, but they don't mean anything unless we get a chance to hear back. And, you are, therefore I am. That allows us to grow and allows us to, it only allows us to grow if there's a community, if there's connection and people willing to share. The other thing here that comes to mind too is the idea here that, you know what? I lost the second idea. So it'll come back to me. We'll move on. Again, Monday morning.
To kind of touch on what Felicia said, I find the same thing. Like about spicy comments. Sometimes too, the spice is kind of an illusion in our own minds. Like we think, oh, I'm gonna say this, like I'm gonna type this. I've had times like that where I'm like, I'm gonna type this and it's been sitting on my chest forever, and then you type it, you send it, and they're like, oh yeah, no, I've been thinking that too. Or it's like literally everybody is like, yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, okay. Like it's literally like nothing. But you think that it's gonna like crash the whole organization because it's just like that buildup of yourself, right? So that's what I think of sometimes when I hear the spicy comments. Sometimes they are spicy, but sometimes a lot of times we just think that they're spicy, but everybody else is like, yep, nope, I'm on the same page. It's all good. So I find that ShowUp's really useful in that way, especially some mornings I wake up and I'm like, oh, whatever, I'll just say whatever I want. I don't really care. Like, you know, you just wake up and you're like, I don't give a shit. Like I'm just gonna plow through today.
Gonna be
I don't
me.
care who hears what, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna be as frank as I can. No offense to any Franks out there.
Yeah, that's the thing though. Like that courage, and this gets me to the second piece that I was gonna mention earlier. Like that courage. Like sometimes we carry that and we have that, and we can do it because we have the courage, and it could be a bunch of external factors, it could be internal, could be whatever, right? We have it in that moment, so we can share. We vocalize it. We're able to do that, but sometimes we don't have that, and sometimes we still have to say what we think needs to be said. And when you think about that, and you think about that opting out that I mentioned earlier, right? It happens in a split second, and like I don't know, like being a dad, sitting there with my son, watching him come home from school and walking through the door. Hey, how was your day, Jordan? Good. Like that's all you get in that moment, right? And if we've all been students at school, we come home, our parents ask us, "How was your day?" What was our response?
Good.
Good. You know, we probably didn't engage in that moment because it wasn't our time. It wasn't, and the same thing with Jordan. It wasn't his moment to share that. It wasn't his timing. It was convenient for me.
Yeah.
If I want the gold, 10 minutes before bedtime is usually where the good stuff was. Going to spend the time there in that moment. Now, that's not when I wanted to go do it. I would only, but if I really needed to know what was going on, spending the time in his space, on his timing, would allow for that to happen. And when I think about growing up too, it would be the same sort of thing. Like the timing has to be good if we're going to be vulnerable, I think. And I think ShowUp kind of jumpstarts that because you don't have to worry about the timing. You can just say what needs to be said because there's nothing that is, again, there's still a level of courage that you have to display in that moment to share that. But on the same note, like you don't have to worry about carrying the emotional weight of what you just said.
Well, and I think too, these conversations are already happening.
They absolutely are.
Like they 100% are already happening. So I think it's just to, we'll use the school metaphor, share it with the rest of the class.
Mhm.
Like we're all thinking, like most of us are, like you say, we're thinking this, like Angela said, like, oh, I thought it was so spicy, but we're already talking about it too.
Certainly. Certainly. It's on the table. It's being discussed. And putting some light onto it allows for more sense making to happen on that topic, as opposed to it happening behind closed doors or around the
water cooler.
proverbial water cooler. It allows everyone to have an opportunity to put some more spice into it, maybe put their 2 cents, put their lens on it, their world experience onto it, and then that allows it to be something new as opposed to what it's always been.
I think it's my turn. So I just want to take a step back and just explain what ShowUp is. And like everyone talked about, is conversations. And basically how we use it is we'll present a topic, and then anyone that's joining, which is either by their phone or in a browser, they can respond anonymously to what either, like we've used it in so many situations. So recently we were talking about hiring someone, and there was confusion around what this person would do and what this position would be for. So people had questions, and we were able to air it all out, and everyone felt a lot more comfortable about that topic. So that's just one example of a topic. And last week we had a live event, and we had panelists in front of the room, and we were able to live stream it, and people joined on ShowUp and were able to ask questions to the panelists, whether they were in the room or live streaming. So that's another way we got to use ShowUp. Another way was basically we're tasting our own food. So internally, every company has topics they want to tackle, and sometimes it's just sharing product updates. So we share good news, and we also share common questions that we think, like everyone has been saying, like we think it's a big scary topic, but we're already talking about it. So this is a way for everyone to have the same voice. It doesn't matter what title you have. It doesn't matter which department you're in. Everyone has the same voice because there's no name or title attached to it. So I think that's really important. Not everyone feels comfortable or safe to share certain comments when it comes to certain topics. So I think this is a great way to have a sort of town hall, like we call it, or a feedback box or suggestions or comments. Sometimes it's just how they're feeling that day. It doesn't have to be super deep conversations. And like Angela was saying earlier, if you just share it, you feel so much better after. So just someone saw it, you just feel better about it. Someone saw how you felt. And oftentimes when we see the comments come up as a host, you'll read them out loud. So even having them read out loud, I feel heard. So I think just all these different scenarios, we were able to use it, and we're still developing it. So the more people we get on it, the more feedback we get, and we're so grateful of how far we've come already with it. Yeah, so I just wanted to share exactly how ShowUp works. We say ShowUp a lot, but we don't maybe not explain what it actually is. So
That's a good
yeah,
point, Estelle. Thank you. What's interesting too about the whole town hall aspect of it, like when you think about a typical town hall, you have your little box and you put your little piece of paper in there with your comment. Where does that go?
To a
It's
back
like
room in
into
the
the
garbage.
void. And if someone does actually pick it up and read it, it's probably 2 or 3 people taking a look at it in the back room and then deciding what to do with it. Well, show up kind of short circuits that, where it's brings it to the forefront for the group to make sense of, to then decide how are we going to handle that as a team. So it not only sheds more light onto it, but it gets more people talking about it, which then allows it to then take a life. And as opposed to 2 or 3 people sitting in the back room reading it, trying to then assess what to do with it, and attach their own meaning to it, and then attaching what they think needs to happen with it, as opposed to the group.
interpretations.
Absolutely, those lenses are so important.
Yes.
Perspectives.
Well, thank you very much, panel. That was amazing. And Estelle, perfect synopsis and scenario of how this tool actually functions and works. So at Dovico, we don't necessarily have a top-down approach. So I love that Owen brought up the fact that, yeah, a lot of town halls, a lot of feedback that comes from employees, right? The CEO, the CFO, the C-level suite will take it back into some room, either decide to do something about it or decide not to do something about it. At Dovico, it is really open to all of us. Now, when we talk about spicy, I think when we began, and we began quite some time ago, we began in 2020 doing this type of anonymous feedback. And we believed it was spicy. It was like, who said that? Right? You're always curious, wonder who said that. And I know that oftentimes even I would take it personally, and we had to talk to each other. Are we in reaction? Are we attached to the outcome? Oh, maybe we should be sitting in the uncomfortable right now, our first 3 pillars. And it was so important. It was so important that we discover one another. So what we saw is the shares that we saw, and sometimes people would say, oh, that was me that wrote that anonymous comment. It took a few years, but we would actually see the courage and the bravery come out and say, you know what, that was me. Because the other 29 people in the room, there's 30 of us, said, I see you, I'm holding you in the palm of my hand. I've got you. You know, we were all thinking the same thing. So when we can release the thoughts, we're not taking these perceptions or these thoughts to bed with us. It really has generated some clarity within our company. But do you all agree that it has created a closeness within us? You can just unmute yourselves and say, I'm going to go look at Eve's question.
I would say yes.
Vulnerability and courage. How can you not be connected to somebody displaying those characteristics? And not only that, when you see it in display, it empowers you to do the same. And I think we're all better for it. So yeah, connected, absolutely.
I agree. And being a remote team, having the cameras off and being all our hands in the room, basically with our keyboard, it creates that closeness that you may not have if you were just working remotely in your office and not having these meetings. This gives you a way to have an extra level of connection that you wouldn't necessarily get without a tool like this.
Agreed.
Kind of an interesting point about being virtually connected is even before we went completely virtual, I bet that most people would have some form of a connection to a celebrity that they would read about in magazines about their life. Eventually, like how many people are dedicated to Oprah? Like a lot of people are. And the thing is that how many people have actually met Oprah? You know what I mean? Like, but people feel connected. They can feel connected to her mission, to her bravery, to her vulnerability, like Owen and Felicia were saying, because she gets up on stage and she talks to KKK members. Like, how scary would that be? Like, to be a colored woman and talk to somebody like that. Like, she is bravery. And she also talks about her story all the time. So it's like you feel that connection to somebody when you see them vulnerable. So it's not really shocking to me that we can still connect, even though we're not in person with each other. And it's a little bit harder to connect with each other, but at the same time, if you're still the same amount of vulnerability as you are in person, there should still be the same level of connection because we've all felt it with people that we've never met before, but personally, we feel very attached to them. Like, I don't know Johnny Depp that well. I've never met him before, but I can tell you, he is my favorite actor out there, and I feel very connected to him. So.
There's an
Wow.
openness that is important here. Like the whole, I never knew that about Oprah having conversations with people within the KKK. But regardless, like there's something to learn from everybody, and there is an openness that has to be displayed. And hearing the other side, if we create a divide and say, well, you're feeling that way, I'm feeling this way, there's no common ground. Well, there's no growth. There's no opportunity for a path forward. And I think whether we have difference of opinions or different ideas, creating a way to connect is the path forward together. And it doesn't mean we're going to, Oprah's going to, fly the flag of her, people that would see the world differently than her. But by having those conversations, maybe there's an opportunity to see, well, how can we find a way to keep this conversation going so we can then find a way together? I'm never going to agree with what you say, but it doesn't mean that we can't find a way forward. And that might be an extreme case, but certainly having those dialogues allows for something different to happen as opposed to the same thing, which is you're over there, I'm over here, and we're never going to come together. Nothing happens in that situation, just more of the same.
Absolutely beautiful. And Angela and everybody out there, Angela is Gen Z, right? So for those baby boomers out there, for those Gen X's out there, that's me, who say we can never get connection remotely. We can never work like this and be connected. I love that, Angela. That is absolutely amazing because sometimes when we say in absolutes, well, that never work. We'll never be, we have to order everybody back to the office because that's the only way that we're going to be able to move forward, right? So that's Gen Z saying, oh, wait a minute, aren't you connected to, Johnny Depp? Aren't you connected to Oprah? Don't you feel some kind of connection to, who's the big artist right now that everybody's loving? everybody's connected to her. They wear her suits. They wear her. She's dating the football player. Eve talks
Taylor
about
Swift.
Taylor Swift. I mean, there's people that are connected. I have family members that are in Portugal right now because she's there, like, you know, at her concert. So that is beautiful, Angela, to just say to us, wait a minute, don't be so sure that you're not able to connect because it's this way. I love that. That is, I never even thought about that. So that kind of blew my mind. So Eve, at his dentist appointment, has a question for us. And the question is to the panel, because the conversation is not controlled, do you feel that there is less certainty or more certainty in your role? So deep, Eve.
So just for a bit of context to people watching, he's talking about the show up conversation because essentially, like Estelle was saying, when you message your comment, essentially everybody's just messaging. So you can't really actually be in control of how many people are responding versus if somebody had their hand up, you could actually pick, okay, well, I'm going to choose you or I'm going to choose you. I'm not going to choose you. You know what I mean? Like there's not as much control versus that. So just a little bit of context.
I think for me, when creating a conversation, first of all, if you are truly having a conversation, there is never control. There can't possibly be control in a conversation because if there is, it's not a conversation. It's a
monologue.
It's a monologue. The speech. So I think when I'm creating these show up conversations, I'm sort of like, well, maybe I'm hoping this, I typically only have about 6 to 7 slides, hoping that there will be conversation within. What that conversation will look like, I don't know. So for me, I've never thought about having more or less control. It's just, I hope a conversation sparks off. Like Owen says, I don't know where it's going to land, but it's going to land somewhere. So
It's gonna go where it's gonna go.
Yeah.
That's a dialogue. That's a conversation where everyone has an input. And like the certainty, uncertainty piece, I find that's an interesting part of Eve's question. Like, why do we attach? And I think we do this by instinct. Like we attach negativity to uncertainty. Like we think like, everything that comes through uncertainty, we think, oh, it's bad. Like, why do we do that? Yes, you don't know where it's going to go, but that's the nature of dialogue. And if you're interested in having a conversation, like you said, it's that it's going to go where it's going to go, and people are going to say what needs to be said. And that's I think for me, yes, maybe there isn't control, but I mean, are we after the typical corporate dialogue, or not dialogue, just a conversation where it's top down, this is the message and we got to stay on point? Are we interested in that, or are we interested in actually learning something? And if we're interested in actually learning something, having it more organic allows for that to happen. And again, the conversation is going to go where it's going to go, so we can all learn and then find a way forward together. And that connection, I think, builds that community out, and we're reaping the benefits of that today based around these practices for sure.
So
Yeah, definitely.
Final thoughts. We're in our last few minutes. No, Angela, you go. Final thoughts.
I'm just gonna agree with Felicia and Owen. I agree that like when it comes to uncertainty, I think that there is like a bunch of fear because it's the unknown. But the thing is that it's essentially a gamble. Like if you don't take any risk, you don't get any outcome. You don't get anything. So sometimes the risk is better.
And to address part of Eve's question, that is there less certainty or more certainty in my role? And I would say there's more certainty because it frees up space in my brain. If a difficult topic was talked about that was nagging at me, so in the end, it makes me more certain and more focused in my role overall, for sure. Because we do this every week, every Wednesday. So that's our team ritual. So yeah, I think it does provide certainty. Oh, and Eve mentioned something good. We do have a webinar coming up next week. Angela, if you want to talk a bit about that.
It will also be a panel discussion.
Yes.
It's going to be complete Gen Z, and it's called Bridging the Gap. Actually, I need to look up what the rest of it is. Sorry, guys. I've been looking at it, but it doesn't mean I remember it. Bridging the Gap, Engaging and Retaining Gen Z Talent. So if you want to know how to best engage Gen Z talent and to retain them, You're gonna have a whole panel to be able to learn about it. So it's only 45 minutes. Next Tuesday at, is it 1:30? Yeah, 1:30
1:30 Atlantic. Yeah.
Atlantic.
I'm like to just say something about ShowUp too here, just to circle back. So we've been under the premise that these conversations have to happen in a live format. We've just had a release last week where now you can have the conversations in what we call a passive format, where people can enter into this conversation, into this dialogue asynchronously. So we don't have to set a time and a place to have the conversation anymore. We can do it asynchronously through the app where people can do it at their leisure, on their time, from wherever they are, to go ahead and enter in these perspectives on the conversation. So again, we don't have to do this in a live format anymore with a specific time and place to do it. We can do it asynchronously now through ShowUp.
I love that. Now my 2 a.m. thoughts can become real. I'm like, oh, I
Absolutely.
wish I would have thought of that.
Does anybody else have anything that they would love to add or like to add? No,
Well,
you
thank you
all
for
were
sharing this,
amazing.
Shelley. This was a great conversation.
Yeah,
Thank you
just
for
to say
doing
thank
this.
you.
Right? I'm so proud of each and every one of you. Even Estelle was like, oh, just stay. I absolutely love that.
Unplanned, totally unplanned.
I know, but I love that. I love that. And this is part of what ShowUp has created, right? It has created bravery within us. It has created a connection within us that no matter what happens, we each have each other's back. And it is a absolutely beautiful thing. So you out there, if you want to create a high performing team, if you want to create some conversation that you don't believe is happening at your location now, inclusively, because that's what's really this is all about. It's not about you leaders having all the answers and going back into that boardroom and making a decision for your team. Your team is there for you, and your team is going to support you in everything you do if you allow them in. And that is certainly what we have found here. So sometimes it is uncomfortable. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but at Dovico, we are so close-knit now. We believe in a high-performing team, that we are a high-performing team, not because we can do lines of code, not because we can put a million marketing pieces of material out there. It's because we are clear of mind. We are able to release those thoughts. Just like Estelle had said earlier, I don't have to take them to bed with me anymore. I can talk about it. So showup.io. Eve and I have promised any one of you that if you are out there and you want to introduce this tool into your environment, you want to create a high-performing team, we will give you our services free of charge, and we will help you. We will help you create a beautiful team just like we have here at Dovico. And oh, I am so proud of you. Thank you, Owen. Thank you, Felicia. Thank you, Estelle. Thank you, Angela. This has been Mindset Monday. Can't wait to see you next Monday where we're going to show the tool a little bit more. I'm Shelley Butler. Mwah! Get your workout in. Love you.